Martinelli. It's now with Granit Xhaka. Is it going to be the third goal? It is the third goal. Granit Xhaka with it. That seals it. Good evening, how you doing? My name's Richard. This is Over and Over and Over Again. And tonight we've got a special show for you. It is the opposition view ahead of tomorrow lunchtime game, Aston Villa versus Arsenal. It's a big game, obviously, for Arsenal. It's a pretty big game for Aston Villa as well. We have got an Aston Villa fan joining us as well, Rich from the Villa Park podcast. So it's all coming up. We're going to have a chat about the game tomorrow. We're going to look back at, some historic games between the two clubs over the years. There's been quite a lot, obviously, historic fixture in English football. So we've got a lot to get through. So why don't we get started? And what we'll do, we'll just switch ourselves over, home and away, so we're right way round. Rich, how you doing? Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. How are you about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I've just recovered from flu, so I'm just getting over that, so I'm feeling all right now. Obviously, you have got the Villa Park podcast. I think you got to 1,000 subscribers today, was it?
We did, mate. Yeah, we did. I think maybe some people must have known I was coming on the show, mate. But yeah, we passed 1,000 subscriber barrier. So yeah, excellent stuff. I mean, we've been going since August properly as a YouTube channel. So to get it, within 6, 7, 8 months is great. So yeah, really, really good. And then on to more. Next stop 2K, I reckon.
Well, that's what the target's always there. Whatever target you hit, there's another one to reach, isn't there? So
exactly.
It's great stuff that you've got there so quickly, actually, which is great. And obviously, you do some great stuff. There is a link in the description to this show in the link, in the description down below, anyway. So go and check out Rich's channel because it's great stuff. Obviously, before we kind of get into maybe the game tomorrow, just sort of a little bit about yourself. I mean, obviously, why Aston Villa? What made you support Aston Villa?
Yeah. Well, born just outside Birmingham, a place called Stourbridge. My dad was originally born in London, but then moved up to the Midlands to do his teaching, and then did a tour of like the Midlands ground. So went to see West Brom, I don't think he went to see Blues, went to see West Brom, went to see Wolves, and then went to see Villa. And it just so happened it was the 1980-81 season where we won the league. And he just fell in love with the club. And then obviously the season after was the 1981-82 season, which we won the European Cup. So I don't think he could have picked a better time to start following Aston Villa, to be fair. And then when I came along, I was just hooked on football, and Villa was my team from day dot. And then now I live in Newcastle. Met a Geordie woman many years ago, moved up here, and now sort of follow them from afar with quite a few other lads who live up here who happen to be Villa fans as well. So that's how it goes, mate. Once you got your team, that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, no matter where you live, no matter where you go, the team stays with you, doesn't it? No matter where you are. That's always good to see. What was your first game then at Villa Park?
It was 1986, Villa v Chelsea. I think we needed to win to stay up, or to guarantee safety, and we won 3-1. And my favourite player at that time was Mark Walters, and he scored, I think, in that game. So 1986, I was 5 years old, so I remember it vividly.
Wow, brilliant stuff. Who's your favourite all-time Aston Villa player then?
It's got to be. I think it's got to be Tony Daly or Paul McGrath are probably my big heroes. So Walters when I was a real young kid, then Daly, and then probably Paul McGrath as I started to go watching Villa by myself and stuff, and then following that probably Dwight York, players like that.
Yeah, well, there's been some great players at Aston Villa over the years, hasn't there? Without a doubt. Who's your favourite player at the current team?
It's a tough one, Obviously, it was a certain certain long-haired player who plays for Man City now. It
I'm
was
sure.
him, and even though I think Villa fans kind of hate him, I think when he does well, I think we kind of have that tinge of like pride in us to see him doing so well. But yeah, at the moment, it's probably someone like a Tyrone Mings. You know, I think he gets a lot of criticism, but he's just signed a new contract at the club. And I think he's a real leader, and he's come through a lot of adversity at Villa, you know. So probably someone like Mings or obviously Martinez is done very, very well over these last couple of years, and obviously got that Arsenal connection. But yeah, I'd say Mings just about shades it for me.
Yeah, I mean he's been a great player for the club over the years, hasn't he? So that's not a bad choice. I mean, just finally on yourself, I mean, what would be your sort of favourite Aston Villa memory then that you've had over the years? Probably been a lot,
Recent,
really, hasn't it?
yeah. I mean, like back in when I was like 15, 16, I'd probably say like the Coca-Cola Cup win against Leeds, and then which was the Coca-Cola Cup, now the Carabao Cup, and I think a couple of the European nights we played Atletico Madrid one night, and Collymore scored an absolute screamer. That was a great Villa night, and then recent times it's got to be the run under Dean Smith to get us back into the Premier League, and then ultimately winning in the playoffs against Derby. I think to win 10 games in a row in any league is phenomenal, and just that it was just crazy just going to most of the games, you know, following Villa around the country. It is horrible going down to the Championship, but sometimes you have some of the best times in football when you go into like Rotherham and grounds like that. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
No, I mean, I'm sure it is. I mean, I suppose we've been
Yeah,
fortunate.
your guys
We
aren't going to
haven't.
go through that. Yeah,
No, well,
yeah.
not. It doesn't look like it. We haven't been for a long, long time since we've been at the top flight. It's been, over 100 years. So it seems unlikely to happen anytime soon. But you never know. Things change. Fortunes change quickly for clubs. As things stand. But yeah, it's not something that I've ever experienced. And I can understand it being in a way that'd be quite nice to visit some of them different grounds. We like it in the FA Cup and stuff when you get drawn against a team away from home that you've not been to before. But actually going to them games more regularly, teams that you wouldn't normally play, I suppose could be quite interesting maybe for one season, not any more than that. Maybe.
No, yeah, you don't want to be,
you don't
want to be Leeds and there for good. You know what I mean? For 20 odd years, but yeah, for a couple of seasons, it is good, like you say, and you've got chance of winning games. That's the thing. Football fans like to win games, don't they? And like, when it's not fun. Look at Everton. Like, it's not fun being an Everton fan at the moment, is it? Or you're losing every week, so it's good. It's sometimes a nice little change to go and experience winning games.
Yeah, I suppose it is. I mean, I'll say, I'll have to take your word for it because we've not been in.
Yeah, I know, mate. I know.
Really, I mean, the closest we got was when we lost our first 3 games last season. That was about nearest that we got there.
It was nearly crisis at that stage as well.
It felt like it. It felt like it. That's because we're not used to it. You see, we're not used to being down that end of the table much. So, it was a new experience. But yeah, I don't think it'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, I suppose you're back where you belong now. Premier League, big club, Aston Villa. I must admit, Villa Park's my favourite away ground in the Premier League. It always has been. I think it's such a historic stadium. The main stand and everything like that. Every time you go there, you feel like you're a part of football history. And it's not many of those grounds left now, is there? Because all the new stadiums that's popping up here, there, and everywhere. And there's only maybe 4 or 5 left in the Premier League. Maybe Liverpool, Everton are moving their ground.
Yeah,
they're all going, aren't they? So there's not going to be many left. And Villa Park, to me, I'm just gutted that the FA Cup semi-finals aren't played there anymore, because it used to be a good day out for the semi-finals as well, didn't it?
Yeah, I really don't understand that. That ruling in terms of, I understood it for a few years to get Wembley paid off and stuff, but I always thought that they would go back to the traditions of playing at neutral grounds, just because, I don't know, for clubs it's a novelty, isn't it? And then the novelty wears off with Wembley. If you go in for the semi-final and then the final, it kind of wears off. And then, to play at Villa Park or Old Trafford or wherever was a good, was a great day out somewhere different. And I don't know, you had half of that ground, as opposed to kind of just being at Wembley all the time.
Yeah, no, I kind of missed those semi-finals. They were much better, and it made the final a much better occasion, didn't it? Because it was your first opportunity to be at Wembley, just in the final, and now it isn't because you seem to be there. If you do well in the FA Cup, you're there, the semi-final, the final, and you get sick of it, don't you? I mean, I remember one year we played in the two cup finals in the League Cup, the FA Cup. We played the semi-final at Wembley, then you got the Charity Shield at Wembley, and it was like we seem to be at Wembley all the time. And it loses its kind of magic, doesn't it? And that's what's happened,
Absolutely.
I guess, over the years. But,
yeah,
and so Villa Park was always a great venue for that semi-final. Brilliant.
Yeah, a lot of away fans that when we speak to some fans on the podcast and stuff, they tend to say Villa Park's their favourite ground and stuff. So yeah, it's good to hear that. There's been up and down with the atmosphere and stuff at Villa the last couple of seasons, but from an away fan's perspective, it is a really good old style ground, and looking at the Holt End from where you guys are, it must be a good sight.
It is, yeah. I mean, I say, even though obviously over the years, I mean, I first went to Villa Park, I think 1981. So I've been over the years, and it's changed a lot, obviously, from when it used to be a big terrace on the Holt End. I remember standing there in the semi-final of the FA Cup on 2 or 3 occasions on the Holt End when it was a terrace. Brilliant. And yeah, I mean, it is. I actually kind of preferred it when the away fans were behind the goal, if I'm honest. I kind of quite liked it. They moved along the side. It's a great view there. Let's be honest, it is a great view there. But I always like being behind the goal as an away fan. But I suppose it doesn't distract away from the fact that it is. I say it is my favourite ground, away ground in the Premier League. So I was really pleased when you got promoted again and back, because it was kind of missed going to Villa Park, missed you guys in the Premier League, so it was nice to have you back actually. Now, obviously, what we just got a couple of comments, and actually Terry says, "Good evening, Richard, and welcome, Rich." And we've got Loki in the chat as well. He says, "Evening all," and he mentions a Villa player that I remember quite well from back in the day, Gary Shaw, maybe a little bit before your time, I think, but I remember Gary Shaw getting a few goals for Villa. That was sort of probably at 81, wasn't it? He probably played in the title team, did he, Gary Shaw? I think he would have.
He did. Yeah, he did. Yeah, so a little bit before my time, but always a player, that gets talked of really fondly with Villa fans of that era. And I think it was almost like a case of missed potential as well, because I'm pretty sure he was, touted for big things with like England and going further with Villa, but got a bad injury and kind of ended up curtailing his career. But yeah, like a bit of a Villa hero really for kind of the fans that were around that watched the team in those early 80s, definitely.
Yeah, so I remember him being a very good player for Villa, scored a lot of goals, and he played up front with Peter With, I think, didn't he, at one point? I think those two had quite a good partnership, didn't they, for Villa? So, yeah, I remember Gary Shaw. And Loki says, well, away day standing at Villa was special. Yeah, it was, yeah. The away end behind the goal. Is it Trinity Road stand, isn't it, the one behind the goal? What used to be...
They've got the north stand. The north stand's the one behind the goal. You guys now would stand in what would be called the Doug Ellis stand. It used to be the Whitton Lane stand. So the north stand was where the away fans used to be, but it's now the Whitton, the Doug Ellis stand essentially.
Did it used to be called the Trinity Road? I'm sure
Trinity Road's the other side.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Trinity Road is like so basically opposite the stand, opposite where the away fans sit.
Because that's the same where the road kind of goes through the middle of it, isn't it, outside?
Yeah. So it's 3 tiers now. So it's all been done out. But yeah, that's the Trinity Road. Yeah.
I think I've probably been there, maybe in a semi-final, as well. I seem to remember.
You must have done. Yeah. So I imagine. I'd imagine that fans would. I'd imagine they'd do it like North Stand and Trinity Road for one set of fans, and then what is the Doug Ellis stand and the Holt End for the other set of fans.
Yeah, I think it used to be half the Holt End you used to get, actually, from what I remember.
Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting.
Obviously, it took up.
Yeah.
That's your location given up, isn't it? I think so. I remember going there a few times. We had half the Holt End, and the other team had the other half, and bits and pieces all around. But yeah, it was good days, definitely. Loki says Villa's kit in '82 was the best. Yeah, I remember that kit. Yeah, I remember the white one. Was that the away kit? I remember a white kit Villa had in '82.
Mate, yeah.
Sort of early 80s. That was a great kit there. Yeah, he's right. I used to love that kit, actually. Anyway, obviously, we can't really talk about Arsenal and Aston Villa at this moment in time without maybe talking about this fella. I've got to be honest. Certainly in the last days of him at Arsenal, I really, really, really wanted him gone. I just did not. I couldn't abide him any longer. But actually now, as time's gone on, I actually kind of quite warm to him. I actually quite like him as a person. I think he was always a great guy. It just didn't quite work for him at Arsenal. I mean, obviously he's been at Villa not a great deal of time, 9, 10 games, whatever he's been. But what have you made of him so far since he's come in? Because I'm surprised he came back to the Premier League actually after what happened at Arsenal.
Yeah, I think overall, I'd probably, if I was to grade him, I'd probably grade him about a 7.5 out of 10, which is pretty good. And had you asked me that like 3 weeks ago, it would probably been like a 9 out of 10. But obviously, we've had a couple of defeats and we've conceded quite a few goals in those games. And I think the real impressive thing about Emery is the level of detail that he goes into each game, and
Yeah.
the fact that he plays tactically and almost like a team to focus on each game. So that's something that Villa have needed, because we've had two managers in Dean Smith and in Steven Gerrard that would just play the same formation, pretty much the same players, and expect something out of that system. And then if it wasn't working, they would just keep doing the same thing and hoping that it would turn around. And Villa fans were crying out for changing of tactics, change of personnel, and because it was almost like they had their favourites. So when Emery came in, it was like a breath of fresh air, like setting up tactically to win games away from home. Particularly, like we've won 3 out of the 4 away games that we've had. Beating Tottenham, obviously that would be good for you guys. Beating Brighton, and beating Southampton. So that's been really good. I guess the where we've got a few reservations, and partly this is partly down to the players that he's got, but we've conceded over the last 2 games some really, really, really sloppy goals, and they've been coming, to be fair, because I think you guys had the same situation at Arsenal where he asks his players, particularly his defenders and his goalkeeper, to play out from the back continually, and if it works, it's fantastic. Like, some of the football is brilliant, but when it doesn't work, it's just horrendous. The goals that you can see, they're just like you wouldn't even expect a Sunday League team to be conceding goals like that. And that's the bit where it's starting to kind of like there's a little bit of not rumblings or anything like that, but it's a little bit of like, hang on a minute, we need to start playing in the right areas here. You can't keep doing that, because you're just going to get punished, because it didn't work at Arsenal, and Arsenal have got better players than Villa, so it ain't going to work at Villa.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of what you said there does kind of ring a bell with me, obviously, from when he was at Arsenal. And, we used to be pulling our hair out, playing out from the back, with the team that we had at that time wasn't good enough to do it. You can understand the reason behind it. And, as you said, when it works, it's brilliant. And, we had a really good spell in the first season under Emery. I think we was 21, 22 games unbeaten in all competitions, playing some good football. And, at that time, I thought, wow, I thought Wenger was going to be difficult to replace. And suddenly he came in and we were playing great football, winning games, and it all looked rosy. And then I felt a little bit sorry for him, actually, because I don't think he was given the backing from the board that Mikel Arteta has been given in terms of the players. Yeah. He wanted certain players he didn't get. The club had different transfer policy at the time, and unfortunately he was kind of caught up in that a little bit, and he was given players he didn't really want and had to make do with. And you're never going to be successful when that's the case, is it? If you want certain players and you get different players instead, exactly. It's going to be hard. And I think he had his hands tied behind his back to a certain degree. How successful he would have been if he'd been given the same backing as Mikel Arteta, we'll never know. I do think he's a very good coach, and I do think he's had success, hasn't he, previously, and even since he had success at Villarreal after he left Arsenal. So,
well, exactly. I think he's won. I think he won like 4. He's won 4 Europa Leagues, hasn't he, across 2 different clubs? So that shows the tactician and the coach that he is. And I just want to add, like, he is the best manager that Villa could have ever hoped for at the time of getting rid of Steven Gerrard. I think Emery turned Newcastle down for whatever reason, and to have a manager of that pedigree to come to Aston Villa, it is incredible, to be fair. So I think we count ourselves very lucky to have him. It's just that Villa are one of these clubs that will back the manager, but it's a weird one because because we see Newcastle doing so well and because we see Brighton doing so well as Villa fans, you've said a big club and all that kind of stuff. We are like, well, why can't that be us? And then there becomes a sense of impatience. Then if the results don't turn around for Emery, like not the results don't turn around, but let's say for example next season and we're in like 15th, 16th place, he's going to suffer the same fate as Steven Gerrard, and that's the problem with Villa fans and Villa as a kind of stability wise. It's like, which manager do we decide to give time to? Because we should really in quotes be in that top 10 and be challenging for that top 8, but no team has a divine right to do it. So at some point we have to give that manager time, but ultimately you're judged on results, aren't you? So it doesn't matter what pedigree you've got. If you lose 5 games in a row, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, you're right, and I mean that's the one thing that maybe Mikel Arteta and Arsenal have done. They gave him time, and a lot of clubs wouldn't have done. Some of the results that we had certainly in his kind of first full season. That season when you beat us 3-0 at the Emirates when there was no fans in the stadium and we were awful, and we were sort of 15th, 16th in the league, and a lot of clubs may well have pulled the trigger at that point on Arteta, but Arsenal stuck with him, and obviously now we can see the benefits of that. And maybe you're right. Maybe that's what Aston Villa need to do. Like you said, I mean, he's got the pedigree. I don't think there's any question he's a very, very good manager. He's a great coach. He's a good tactician. He understands football, and I think he can be successful. But are Aston Villa going to be able to give him the players that he needs to become successful at Aston Villa? I think that's what it might come down to, mightn't it? I mean, you do seem to spend a lot of money. You've bought some players in, last few windows, haven't you? You bought some good players in, so I think that they probably will spend money, won't they?
I'm sure they will. I'm sure. I don't think they backed him as much as he wanted them to in the January window, but that was potentially because those players weren't maybe necessarily available in that January window. But we've backed managers. I don't know. Obviously, we got the big money for Grealish, but we bought Danny Ings, we bought Buendia, we bought Coutinho in, we bought Luca Digne in, we bought countless players, and this is the problem though. And you obviously you guys have had when Wenger left and Emery came in and then Arteta, and it's been a bit more settled now. But like, if you keep changing the manager, then the next manager coming in is going to want to bring his own players in, but he's working with players that were brought in by previous managers. So that's where it becomes difficult, because a lot of the team is still kind of Dean Smith's team, like Tyrone Mings, John McGinn, Ollie Watkins. They're Emi Martinez. They're Dean Smith players, and then you're sprinkling that in with a couple of Gerrard players, and then you're struggling. You know what I mean? So it's going to take time, and I think at the moment we need to give Unai Emery at least 2 seasons, because otherwise we're just going to be going in this ever going circle. You know what I mean? So
you're absolutely right. We've got a comment in the chat from Nathan. He says, "Hi, could you ask your guests what's their thoughts on Luca Digne? Obviously, you just mentioned him as one of the players that's come in recently. What have you made of him at Aston Villa?"
Disappointing, if I have to be honest. He came in last January, and as tends to happen with the January signings, they come in and they initially do very well, because they want to impress. Maybe he burnt a few bridges with Everton. He wanted to kind of show that he was a good player, and then he's had 1 or 2 injuries and stuff, but he's just I don't know, he's just not really delivered what he promised to. He's not really delivered any assists. He's scored maybe 1 goal, 2 goals. He's not really that quick, and for Emery's style, it's not an accident that he brought in Alex Moreno from Betis as his first sign in the January window to put pressure on Luca Digne, because he clearly doesn't see him as an option, as the first choice option, I would say, down that left hand side in the long term. So yeah, I'd have to say it's been pretty disappointing, considering you're buying a French international with experience in Europe and what have you. He's not really done it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I always rated him at Everton. Actually, I thought he was a good player.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
He looked a decent left back, good going forward, get some good deliveries into the box. I always thought he was a good player. And obviously, when you guys signed him, I thought that was going to be a good signing for him.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I get one of the things that I would say that. Yeah, one of the things I would say that probably hasn't helped him is we don't have a target man. So like with Everton, they had
Yeah,
Calvert-Lewin, and he was
yeah,
obviously great with him, and obviously Calvert-Lewin then dropped off and got injured. So that might have been a reason why Rafa let him go at the time with Everton, but we haven't got that player. So, and we never really got that many players into the box. So that does go in his favour a little bit, because if you're crossing into Ollie Watkins and Leon Bailey, with the best will in the world, they're not going to win that many headers.
yeah.
So that does count in his favour a little bit, but he's just not. I don't think he's quite got the pace that that Emery wants from that left hand side.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I say when a new manager comes in, you said before, they've got players that are already at the club, and is it the players that they want or they can work with? And you're always going to have that, aren't you? I suppose. Nathan says there, would you take Target back?
Nah. I liked Matty Target. I really did. But I think for what we needed in terms of that, he worked really well with Jack Grealish, him and
Yeah,
Target, and
yeah,
he gave Grealish the space to do what he wanted to do. But after that, and then to be fair to him, he played well he played really well in that season. But then the season after, when we sold Grealish, he didn't quite do as well, got injured, and I don't think Gerrard quite fancied him. And went to Newcastle, did really well that season. But then this season he's been
yeah.
in and out of the side. I know he's had one or two injuries, but no, I don't think he's quite. I don't think we'd have him back. Basically, no. Good
No, well,
player though. Good pro. Good Premier League player.
I mean, like you said, you just signed a new left back anyway, haven't you? So the chances of signing Matt Target as well would probably be not too
Yeah.
great. I mean, Nathan says, obviously, talking about Emery, he says, where do you think Emery can take Villa? I mean, in terms of, how much success do you think, and what would be success? I mean, for you guys as a club, where you are now, obviously getting a new manager in with a lot of experience, what would you consider success over the next maybe 2 or 3 years?
I think it's just the standard answer. I think if we could get consistently in that top 10, challenge for that top 8, and get a good cup run. I mean, crying out loud, I don't think we've won I think it's something like one win in the last 11 years in the FA Cup third round for Villa. It's horrendous.
Wow.
We just lost to Stevenage, didn't we, in the last one?
Yeah.
So whatever it is, there's some sort of mental block with the team that we've just never get through in the third round of the FA Cup. We got to the Carabao Cup final in the season that we came back up, but lost to Man City 2-1. But yeah, I think a good cup run, and then just consistently challenging for that top 8. I think that would be success for us, and then seeing where we can go from there. Like you say, we are a big club, but we're way too inconsistent. And I do understand the Premier League, you've got to be that bit patient, but you look at a team like Newcastle, I know they're probably going to drop off a little bit, but I still think they'll probably make the top 4. So it can happen, but it's just so difficult to go from, you can win back-to-back games, but to win 4 or 5 or 6 games in a row, that's the difficulty in the Premier League, and that's what you guys have managed to crack that this season. Once you get that momentum, it's very, very difficult for teams to stop it.
It is, yeah. And I mean, I suppose when you look at this season in particular, you've got teams like Brentford and Brighton that are in the top sort of 7, 8. Fulham are having a great season as well. And it's not like they've all spent lots and lots of money, because they haven't really, have they? They've got a pretty settled team, and stuff like that. So, for a club like Aston Villa, to me, that's got to be the aim, hasn't it? To be challenging for the European spots, I think. Especially now you've got a manager like Unai Emery, who's got such a great record in Europe, to get Aston Villa back into Europe. I think, if you were to get into the Europa League under Emery's manager, I think you could do well in that. We got to the final the season he had with us in that competition.
Exactly.
So he knows what he's doing. He knows how to get through those games in Europe, doesn't he? So, if Villa could get into Europe, you could, who knows? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I'm sure if he's given time, I'm convinced he'll do well at Villa. I'm convinced he is, because I really do think he's a very, very good coach. And, looking back on it now, I say at the time I was pleased when we got rid of him, but I just think if he had been given the backing that maybe certainly that Arteta has been given, I do think he could have done well at Arsenal. But anyway, that's in the past. He's at Villa now.
You've had a mixed. I think you've had a mixed relationship, haven't you, with Arteta? So
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I've still got doubts about him at the top level, and I think the last few weeks are showing. It showed last season when the pressure's on. I always said this, and no matter what team you are, no matter who you are, winning games before Christmas is the easier part of it because there's less pressure. It's just a game of football. You go out, you play, and you win. When you get after Christmas, if you're in a good position, you get to January, February. Certainly when you get into March, then suddenly all the games are massive. They're not just. It's not just 3 points anymore. It's bigger than that almost. And so far, every single season under Mikel Arteta, when the pressure's been on, we've crumbled. We did last season when we had the top four in our grasp. We did the season before in the Europa League. Funny enough, against Unai Emery in a semi-final against Villarreal, we crumbled. We didn't even get into Europe that season in the league. So, I've just got just that as eating away the doubts come to me all the time, thinking, are we going to do the same again this season? And obviously, the last couple of weeks or so is tending to suggest that maybe we are going to. I mean, it's still early days. We can still turn it around. There's plenty of games left. But, the signs for the last few weeks have got me thinking, you know what, this has happened before under this manager with a lot of the same players. Is it going to happen again? Or have we learned, as Mikel Arteta learned from those previous seasons, as some of the players learn, are we now going to show his character now, isn't it? It's not about, for me, the second half of the season, that is for any team. It's not about how good you are as a footballer. It's how much character you've got, because that's when it matters more in the last 3 months of the season. That's when it's all about character, isn't it? We know we're good footballers. We know we've got a great team. We've seen that quite clearly. But have they got the character to deal with the extra pressure that comes with being top of the league or being second or challenging for whatever you're challenging for? That's when you see the character of the team and the character of the manager as well. And this is what I'm still waiting to get the answers for. Everyone was getting excited because we were top of the league in December, 50 points from the first half of the season. Wow. I mean, club's never done that before, but we hadn't won anything at that, but we hadn't achieved anything. That means nothing. It's where you are in May that matters, isn't it? What you're doing then. And let's see what happens. I mean, obviously I'm hoping I'm going to be completely wrong and Arteta and the team prove me wrong and show they've got the character and the bottle and the mentality to challenge for the title and go all the way. But at this moment in time, the doubts that I've had previously have been coming back in the last few weeks, obviously, the performance and the results. So we'll see. I mean, tomorrow is actually a really big game. I mean, obviously, just before we get on to the game tomorrow, obviously, as well as one of our former managers, you've got a couple of our former players in your squad. Obviously, Emmy Martin, who you mentioned before, Callum Chambers as well. I know he's not really played that much. What have you made of? I mean, we'll start with Martinez. Obviously, he's been a real success for you, hasn't he? And I believe he's a better goalkeeper than Aaron Ramsdale, if I'm honest. Overall, a better goalkeeper.
Yeah, I mean, I still can't believe that you guys let him go. Like,
No.
at the time, I really can't. Was it Leno was your goalkeeper at that time?
Yeah, Leno, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think there was that much between them at that time. And I know Martinez had played in the cup games and won the FA Cup, and just seemed like a strange one that, like, because Martinez is very honest, very open in his interviews and stuff. And I think he'd said, like, he'd gone to Mikel Arteta or whatever and had, a proper face-to-face meeting with him and said, I want to be the number one, and Arteta couldn't really guarantee him that. And I understand that from a manager's perspective as well. But if you're coming in with a medal around your neck and stuff, it kind of, I think you probably do deserve to have your shot at number one, at least for that first few games. And I guess when he didn't get that answer, that made his mind up for him. And we got him, I think we got him for like 20 million or something. And he's never looked back. He's never looked back. And there was an article in the BBC on the BBC website about him today, and he struck up a real friendship with the goalkeeper coach at Villa, Neil Cutler, who I think played a big part in getting him to the club. And said, he had targets to be the best goalkeeper in the world, and it kind of seemed like far away from, being the number two at Arsenal, although did very well, to then coming into a team that had just about stayed up in the Premier League the season before. But he's gradually got better and better and better, and obviously he's now a World Cup and Copa America winner, and but got the best goalkeeper at the World Cup. So it's been a massive rise for him, and he's still, he wins us games, he wins us points, which is what you want from your goalkeeper. I just don't think we'll keep him after this season, to be fair. That's the thing. I think you'll probably go for 50, 60, 70 million and go off to a Champions League club, but that's fine. He's been a great goalkeeper for us.
Yeah, I must admit, I mean, he hung around at Arsenal for a long time without really getting many opportunities. He was out on loan here, there, and everywhere. I mean, he played on loan pretty much after teams in the league, I think, at some point or other.
Yeah.
And then he got that big chance when Leno got injured at the second part of the COVID season, and when we obviously won the FA Cup in the end. And I didn't really know. All I could remember him for at Arsenal was when he played in a League Cup game against Reading that we won 7-5, and he let in some really soft goals in that game. I know he was quite young then, and that was all I could really remember him for, because he hadn't really played that much. And then he came into the team, and he was absolutely brilliant for the end of that season, the run into that season, and the FA Cup and everything else. And I thought, wow, this kid's looking a really good goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always liked Bernd Leno. I thought I still think he is a very good goalkeeper, Bernd Leno. But I agree with you. I thought at the end of that season, he deserved his chance to be at least start the season at number one. And, you can't guarantee anyone a place in the team. Of course not. No one should expect that. But I agree. He should have started that following season as number one. And unless he made mistakes and didn't deserve to keep his place, then it goes from there, doesn't it? And I thought that was bad, but I thought that was a bad move by the club. We sold him for 20 million. We bought Ramsdale for 30 million or whatever it was. And I think Martinez is a better goalkeeper. So we've wasted £10 million to downgrade on that key position in the team. I think if we had Martinez now in goal, I believe we'd have a bigger chance of winning the Premier League than we do with Ramsdale, because he makes some very, very strange goalkeeping decisions, Ramsdale. He has some great games, he makes some great saves, but he has rushes of blood to the head, he does some strange things.
I'm going to say he can be a bit erratic. I mean, to be fair, though, Martinez, he does make the odd mistake. The goal that he conceded against Man City at the near post, I know it was quite a close range header, but he'd be disappointed in that. He sometimes gets caught out with long range shots. So he's not perfect, but he does make big saves at big times, and he's got that bit of nastiness about him, that bit of gamesmanship about him. But yeah, Ramsdale's a weird one, because I like him as a character and a personality, but how tall is he? He never seems that big to me.
I'm not sure. He doesn't look particularly tall for a goalkeeper, does he? When you look at some of the goalkeepers in the Premier League, I mean, he's probably 6 foot or 6'1" or something.
Yeah.
He's not like the 6'4", 6'5" that some of them are. I mean, Martinez is huge, isn't he?
Yeah.
Pope, he's about 6'7", isn't he? So there's some big goalkeepers, and he's not nowhere near as obviously tall as them. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure about Ramsdale. I'm not sure about him. He makes too many silly decisions, and by now you'd think that he should have stopped that. I mean, he's still fairly young, but he's played a lot of football in the Premier League. Before he came to Arsenal, he'd had 2 full seasons of playing regularly in the Premier League. So, I don't know. I just feel as though he's got to mature a little bit better than what he is at this moment in time. And I think that's something he needs to work on.
Mate. I agree.
And I think you've got a better goalkeeper than us at that kind of situation. Which is
at least we've got one player who's better at least. Yeah.
I mean, obviously Callum Chambers, the other one. I mean, bless him. I love Callum Chambers, but he was never good enough for Arsenal. Let's be honest, he wasn't. Although he had some moments. I remember him getting a great goal against, I think it was Burnley in the FA Cup a few years ago. But overall, he probably wasn't good enough. I mean, what have you made of him at Villa? He's not really played much, has he, really, to be honest?
No, I mean, he came in again, free transfer. And then last season under Gerrard, came in and played, I think it was about 5 or 6 games in a row at one point, and was doing really well. Scored a great goal against Leeds. And I think he scored a couple of goals that towards the end of last season. But then, and actually in pre-season, he looked probably our best defender. Was really, really on form, but I don't know if he got injured or just didn't wasn't like the starting centre back. And hasn't really played this season, so I can't really comment. Like, the only thing I could really say is that if he was that good and if he was knocking down the door that much, he'd be in the side. He obviously had to come into the side on Sunday against Man City, and I mean, you've got to feel a bit sorry for him facing Haaland in your first game at the Premier League start of the season, and you're thrown right in at the deep end. So I don't really blame him for that game, and he's put in a difficult situation. But he might even be playing on Saturday, because Mings is 50-50 to start. And we've obviously got Diego Carlos, but he's only just returned back to training. So the chances are that Chambers will be playing on Saturday.
I mean, to be honest, that's probably a good thing as far as Arsenal are concerned. But that's the sort of player, isn't it? When you're playing against your former club, you raise your game. You do. Everybody
Yeah, he
does.
will do. Yeah,
You've
yeah.
got a point to prove. So, although on paper it looks like, hey, I wouldn't mind if Callum Chambers plays. He's going to be a weak link potentially, but he's going to raise his game. I'm sure he'll want to prove that he's got something about him. And Terry's put a comment that says Martinez is 6'2". He's not. He's 6'5". He's not 6'2". I don't know where you've heard that from. He's definitely 6'5", Martinez.
Unless
and
he
Nick
meant
Pope's probably
Ramsdale.
6'7".
Don't know.
Oh, maybe Ramsdale. Yeah, Ramsdale might be 6'2" actually. Yeah, actually, we'll check that. I'll check Ramsdale later. But anyway, yeah, I mean, he isn't. Ramsdale certainly isn't as big as some of the goalkeepers that are out there. You're right. No, I mean, I say Callum Chambers. Yeah, never. It was a strange signing at the time. I think it was from Charlton or somewhere we got him from, somewhere like that, wasn't it? And he was never ever going to be. A bit like Rob Holding, I guess, a decent enough sort of squad player who can do a job in the odd game or two, but you certainly wouldn't want him to play regular in the team. Otherwise, you'd probably worry that you're going to concede a few goals. But I mean, I'm pleased.
Pace-wise, he's never been great. He's never been great with pace. But yeah, I mean, I think we were trying to send him out on loan in January, like made him available anyway for loan, but didn't really have any takers. So yeah, but now it looks like we probably need him in the side a little bit. So we'll see. He's always been good on the ball. He's got a good pass on him. Quite cultured on the ball. Just not quite quick enough. Hasn't quite got the pace.
Yeah, and he's just not quite at that top level. I mean, obviously, in the position that we've been in, trying to battle for the top four and this kind of stuff, we always needed somebody better. But I say I'm pleased he's got himself a move, and I hope he does well. But obviously, not necessarily tomorrow, particularly. But I hope he has a decent career because he's a nice guy. Ramsdale is 6'2". Yeah, and there you go. So he's a little bit. He needs to get his growing boots on a little bit, doesn't he? But anyway, I mean, so that is sort of just the sort of current players that have got an Arsenal and Aston Villa clear. There's been a few obviously over the years, which maybe we'll come on to in a little while. Terry says, I think Arteta has taken us as far as he can. Well, we'll have to see. Maybe not. There's still lots to play for. Nathan says, do you think Arteta should be trying to take that pressure off the players so they can go out and play their natural game? I don't think you can take the pressure off the players. The pressure's there, isn't it? And it's difficult to remove it. When you're top of the league or you're challenging for titles, every single game, the pressure is there. You can't. I don't know what Arteta can do to take that pressure away from them. The games are there. The pressure in the games is there. You've got to win the game, and that's it. And I don't think it's. I don't know. I mean, I suppose obviously all the coaching staff must be trying to relieve some of that pressure if they can. But once you're out there on the pitch, they all know how important the games are, and I don't know what you can do about that, really.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Well, this is why Fergie was so good when it came to like this time of year, like you said, February, March. This is why Fergie was so good, because he would be like, as long as we're in pretty much touching distance, I know what I can say, I know what I can do to put the pressure on and keep that pressure cranking up. And sometimes it's better to be the chaser than being the one being chased, because that every time they slip up, that you can get that win. I guess where Arteta might be at a little advantage this time around is obviously if you get the win on Saturday, that cranks the pressure back up on City, doesn't it? Because you've played your game, you took, like, the players will have their feet up and watching City try and close the gap again. So that's where it helps. But yeah, I mean, you can't buy experience, and that's the difference. Guardiola's got that experience. He knows what it's like in the running. And he'll be picking games off, and that's the trouble.
And the players know as well, don't they? Most of those City players have been there, done it before, so they know what it's about, whereas the Arsenal players don't. Apart from the ones we got from City, they're the only two. Jesus and Zinchenko, they're the only two players we've got that understand what it's like to win those sort of games, because they're the only ones that's done it. So, and one of them's injured at the minute, which isn't really helping. Colonel says, I think we're going to lose tomorrow unless we can get an early 2-goal lead. We're struggling again against a low block like the last two. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. We're going to talk about obviously the game tomorrow. I mean, what are your expectations on it, really? I know you've had a couple of defeats coming into it. We're not in the best of form either. We've lost 3 of our last 4 games in all competitions, drew the other one. So it's 2 teams that maybe need a win for different reasons, perhaps. I mean, what are you kind of thinking going into the game from your perspective? So you're at home. We don't have a great record at Villa Park since you came back to the Premier League. We've only scored 1 goal, 2 defeats out of 3. There's only been 3 goals in all 3 of them games, actually. They've all finished 1-0, haven't they? 2 to you and 1 to us. So it's not a game that's had lots of goals over the years. I mean, what are you kind of thinking about tomorrow? Do you think it's going to be another kind of similar game to the last couple of years, quite tight, maybe a 1 goal either way? Or, do you think Villa are going to maybe... Emery's got a point to prove again. Someone else with a point to prove, hasn't he, against Arsenal? First time he's played against us in the Premier League. So do you think that might make a difference?
I think so. I think he'll want. It's natural, isn't it, that you'll want to get one over on the team that the club that got rid of you. So that's natural that he's going to have a bit of extra motivation for it. I don't know. I don't think it'll be as tight as the last couple of games. I think last season you guys didn't really have to get out of second or third gear to win that game 1-0. Villa didn't really turn up, and it was another early kickoff. But I think this one, judging by the fact that both teams need a victory, or even just need to not lose, from a Villa perspective anyway. I think there'll be quite a decent amount of attacking football in the game. It's a really difficult one to say. We've had some good results against some of the top teams, under Emery. We beat Man United 3-1 in his first game. We beat Tottenham 2-0 at their place. We beat Brighton 2-1 at their place. So some of the games that we've been expected to come unstuck at, we've won. And this is what I was saying. This is what you were saying, and I've said before, is that coaching quality of Emery, on a game by game basis, he can pick a team that can beat anybody. So that's where I think we've potentially got a chance, but favoritism, you guys should beat us fairly comfortably, to be honest with you. But I do think that Emery element, it being his old club, and also the fact that he can coach a team to win specific games, I think that gives us a bit more of a chance.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's possibly, from your perspective, it's probably a good time for you to be playing us, actually, when, the last 3 or 4 games haven't gone particularly well. We're not playing as fluently as we were. And I do think the Man City result the other night, although in spells we played okay, we got taught a lesson in the second half, and that may well have taken a lot out of us. It's quite a quick turnaround Wednesday night to Saturday.
Yeah, I do think that's a bit unfortunate. That is a bit unfortunate. Yeah. And I was actually saying to some of I can't remember who I was talking to, but I said a result that we probably didn't want was a draw, because if you got a draw, that would have been like kind of a decent result against City. Go into the Villa game with a bit of positivity, and no one's closed the gap. Whereas if you'd have won that game, it could have been like the effort that you've put in, that the team had put in to get that win, means that it's kind of a little bit after the Lord Mayor's show. And obviously you've lost the game. Now with this 1 or 2 things, you could come into the game on Saturday like a wounded animal, wanting to kind of prove everyone wrong and just start with a bang. Or it could be the fact that you're on that bad run and it's kind of stuck in a little bit of a rut. But yeah, the result I guess that Villa fans didn't want was that draw, I think, because that would have kept you guys on a nice level going into that game. But the loss, maybe you are teetering on that edge of kind of not throwing it away, because it's not done, is it? But it's just, you want to get a win as quickly as possible, and coming up against your old manager, it's set up for one of those stories, isn't it? That's the beauty of football, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, I said the other night, obviously after the Man City game, that really the last game we would have wanted to have played next is Aston Villa away. One, because of Unai Emery, first of all. Secondly, because I say we haven't had some great results there in the last couple of years either, and it just, it's got very similar kind of vibe to me. We played Everton in our last away game. That was the early kickoff. And it's got I know that the circumstances, that was slightly different. Their new manager just came in and stuff, but it's got a similar vibe about it to this game for me, this game tomorrow. And I'm very concerned about it, actually, about whether or not we can get a result. I really am. I'm worried about the way we're playing. I'm worried about the mental state of the team at this moment in time, and a few other bits and pieces. So it's a massive game tomorrow, because I think Arsenal have to show the character that when you're in a little bad run, when you're
Yeah.
challenging for stuff, you've got to show some character and dig in and get a result, even when you might not be playing that well. And I'm not sure if this team have got that about them at this moment in time. I'm not convinced that they have, but we'll see tomorrow. Obviously, the team lineup's going to be quite interesting. I mean, are you expecting too many changes from Villa? I know you've lost your last 2 games, conceded 7 goals, which has been. I can understand that, having seen Emery at our place for a couple of years, we conceded quite a few goals, so I wasn't not surprised. But do you think there'll be some changes?
Well, I'm hoping Tyrone Mings comes back. He's 50-50, as I said before. But I do anticipate some changes. Jacob Ramsey hasn't been playing particularly well. He hasn't really caught on to the Emery kind of style yet. He has been injured and then just came back into the side. So I think John McGinn will come in for Ramsey. I think Matty Cash will probably start instead of Ashley Young. Ashley Young's done fantastic, but I do think that extra pace will help us cope against Saka or Martinelli. I think Moreno will come in for Digne. Again, pace. And I think he might pull a wild card out and start our new young Colombian striker called John Duran. And I think he might start instead of Leon Bailey, who's hit and miss at best. And another player who's flattered to deceive, 30 odd million from Leverkusen in the German league, highly rated forward / winger, but just hasn't done enough at Villa. He's scored 5 Premier League goals this season, which on the face of it looks pretty good, but just too inconsistent, far too inconsistent. So, yeah, I'd expect maybe 4 or 5 changes. I wouldn't be surprised either if Philip Coutinho starts, because he's just started to play well again, and Emi Buendia hasn't really, like, he was asking to play consistent games, and he's been given that, and he hasn't delivered on it enough. And Coutinho, every time Coutinho's come onto the pitch the last few games, he's caused damage and he's done really well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Coutinho starts. So yeah, quite a few changes, mate. To be fair. Well, but then Emery could go in and just play the same team that started against City. Who knows? I
mean, yeah, I remember when he was at Arsenal that he wasn't shy in making changes to the team. He would make changes quite a lot. And like you said before about individual games, he's very good at managing individual games, isn't he? Whether he can do it consistently over seasons in a row is maybe for question, because he's maybe never been at a club that's been able to do that. But yeah, certainly in one-off games, that's why he's got a great record in the cups, because that's what that's about, isn't it? Managing those games. And he certainly used to make a lot of changes to the team at Arsenal, and now we've got Mikel Arteta, who in 21 league games has only made 16 changes to the first 11 all season. So we don't make changes at all. And yes, part of that's down to not having any injuries or not having too many injuries, I guess. But it kind of worries me a little bit, because you can't win the league with 16 players, 15 players.
Agreed.
You can't.
I agree.
You can't. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, just a couple of questions from you, because I watch quite a lot of Arsenal content and stuff with different like your stuff and 1 or 2 other channels and stuff. And obviously you're hoping Thomas Partey comes back in, but there's been talk of like Kieran Tierney not playing, and that's a bit of a debatable one with Arsenal fans. Do you think he deserves to be in the side instead of Zinchenko? I know Zinchenko's a quality player, but is he hampering 1 or 2 other players in the team?
I mean, it's an interesting one, that, because obviously Zinchenko is a very good footballer. There's no question about that. Yeah. And he won trophies, at Man City. He's a winner, isn't he? You can see his attitude mentally there, what we need. And I know it's partly down to the system that we play, but I've played left back. That's the position that I played a lot. And if I was out of position as often as he was, I'd be out of the team. I wouldn't be allowed to do that. He's in midfield half the time, and which is probably where he's told to be. But then it leaves massive gap in where he should be in the left back position. And Granit Xhaka's coming in to cover and stuff like that, which is fine, and it kind of works. But for me, sometimes what you need a back 4. That's a back 4, 2 fullbacks, 2 centre backs that do the job that they're there to do. And Kieran Tierney is a much better defensive fullback than Zinchenko. Defensively, he's much better, Kieran Tierney. I don't have any doubt about that. What he can't play that sort of I don't know, fluid midfield kind of hybrid role that Zinchenko plays. Kieran Tierney can't do that because he's not as good a footballer. But do you want your left back? I don't. Maybe I'm a bit old fashioned, but I don't want my left back to be playing centre midfield after game. I want my left back to be playing left back. That's what I want him to be. And and Kieran Tierney is
and
better
it's
at that.
about balance, isn't it? It's about balance.
Yeah.
So what you gain in Zinchenko doing that, you're going to lose something that, like you said, you're gonna have space in behind. Now, someone like Ollie Watkins, he's probably going to exploit that tomorrow.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you had a Kieran Tierney there, then you might lose that extra man in midfield, but then you get an overlapping fullback. Like I think some people have been saying that Martinelli's game has suffered a little bit because he hasn't got that sort of player to overlap him, and he can't cut inside.
Well, what there is now with Zinchenko playing, there's a big gap behind Martinelli because Zinchenko often isn't where you would expect a left back to be. So there's a gap behind him. So then what Martinelli's got to do, he's got to track back quite a lot, which he doesn't mind doing. He's happy to do that work. But then what it means is he's never going to be as effective in the final third. And I don't think it's any surprise that since we've changed that slight adjustment to the way that we play, Martinelli hasn't scored as many goals as he was before. I don't think you can. The two are obviously connected. They are, and his performances have dropped. And I think that has to be one of the reasons. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it's got to be a factor in it. And I personally would like to see Kieran Tierney playing. And, it's difficult to leave Zinchenko out of the team sometimes because he's a leader on the pitch. He is a very, very good football player. But I don't know, it worries me so many times when we lose the ball and he's in midfield and there's a big, massive gap behind him in that area of the pitch in the fullback position because he's not there. And I don't like seeing that. It worries me. And over recent games, that has been exploited at one or two occasions. We've conceded some goals. We've conceded possession. We've, given away opportunities. So, I don't know. It kind of that does worry me. And I would be quite happy for Tierney to be in a team and maybe do leave Zinchenko out and go back to maybe what we were doing make us a little bit more solid defensively, I think. I certainly feel against Aston Villa, I think, even if Thomas Partey is not fit, and it seems unlikely he's going to be, listening to Mikel Arteta today, I don't think he's going to be fit. So I think Jorginho is going to play. And I don't actually mind Jorginho. I think he played all right the other night.
Yeah,
I think he's a decent player.
He tends to have a good game against Villa as well. Like he does, because he's a player who can control the ball and control the tempo of the game. And anytime when he played with Chelsea, he always dictated the game against us. So I don't think you've got much to worry about with him in that midfield.
No, so I think that if we've got Jorginho, Xhaka, and Odegaard playing as a free in midfield against Aston Villa, I think that's going to be fine. I don't think there's an issue there. And then we can play Tierney as normal left back if you like. He can support Martinelli a lot more. Hopefully, it'll give Martinelli a little bit more, license to be able to get forward more often and get himself into the box and cause damage there. And I don't know. I personally would rather we did that. Not just tomorrow, but in general, and I don't know, it is a tough one because, maybe Zinchenko's better position might be to play in midfield. And maybe if Partey's not there, we could play Tierney at left back and put Zinchenko into Partey's role in midfield potentially. But then you've got two left-footed players in midfield, well, three with Odegaard as well. Three left-footed midfield players would be a little bit imbalanced probably, wouldn't it? So maybe that wouldn't work. I don't know.
It's an interesting one, but I didn't know that about the lack of changes. I did know that he likes to keep a settled side, but I mean that's surprising in terms of that kind of lack of change. I can understand with a back five, you want to keep that settled as much as you can, but I know he's had one or two injuries in that back line. But I've been impressed with Arsenal. I really have, and I do actually hope, barring tomorrow, I do hope they do go on to win it, because it'd be nice to have a different side, a different team winning it, and all that kind of stuff, and it'd be a good story for Arteta to kind of, a fact that the club have stuck with him and he's got his own style of play through to the players and stuff. So that would be good, but it's going to be a tough one. It is going to be a tough one, like you said. That when that pressure hits, it's you can't stop it.
Yeah, I mean it's. I think with football, and you mentioned it before, and I think that's right. When you want a good run of results, it just comes naturally. You don't have to think about it. You just go out there, you play the games, and you win. But when you suddenly stop winning games, then for whatever reason, it makes it much more difficult to win games. And Arsenal have been, certainly in the last few years, I've noticed, we've been a team of sort of runs. We'll have a good run of results, and then
Yeah.
we'll get one bad result, and then it will go on a bad run of results. And that's been the
Yeah.
case for quite some time. And that seems to be what's happened now. We don't just lose one game and then win the next five, which is what Man City will do. Man City have had some poor results. They'll lose a game, but then they're going to go and win the next 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Arsenal don't.
Yeah.
We lose a
No, I
game,
get you. I
and
get
then
you.
we lose like 3 or 4 others, and that's unfortunately where we go. Colonel says that if we play Eddie Nketiah, we need to play Tierney and Emil Smith Rowe, so Emil can create for him. If we play Trossard, though, he can drop deeper as a false 9, helping the midfield, being able to play Zinni. Yeah, but I don't like that false 9. We did a false 9 against Unai Emery in the cup winners, the Europa League semi-final when he was at Villarreal. It didn't work, did it? So I don't want to do that again. Terry says, I'm hoping Arteta drops Eddie and Zinchenko. Yeah, they would. If I was going to make changes, they would be the 2 I would make, actually. Eddie Nketiah and Zinchenko. I would take them 2 out, put Tierney in and Trossard in potentially, and maybe play Martinelli as a centre forward. Maybe. I don't think he will. Loki says Kieran Tierney has to start for me. He helps Martinelli. Yeah, that's what we've been talking about. I agree. Colonel says they drop Xhaka and actually play Zinni in midfield. For me, could also be an option. Yeah, I suppose if you would you take Xhaka out though when he's so important in that team at the minute? I don't know, especially without Partey. If Partey's injured, you don't take Xhaka out of the team, do you? I don't think that's
he's playing well.
Too many
Every time I've seen Arsenal play, he's playing well. Like he seems to be playing further forward and getting involved in the play a lot more. And so it's not a bad problem to have, but it's just. I guess it's the situation with Arteta is, does he stick or twist? Does he stick with the team or does he make changes to it? And that's what he's going to be judged on at the end of the day. Because if he makes changes and they don't work, it'll be like, oh, you should have stuck to the same team and vice versa. And that's what he gets paid the big bucks for. But yeah, it's a tricky time of the season for Arsenal at the minute, because exactly as you just said, mate, it's like when Arsenal have lost a couple of games, it tends to last a little bit longer than it should.
Yeah, it does, and it already has to a certain degree. What's it, 4 now in a row? So we need a win from somewhere. Loki said he'd go with Trossard, Martinelli, and Saka. I mean, the only problem with that is I kind of quite like that, but there isn't a natural centre forward in those 3. Not that Man City won the league without a centre forward at all. So I'm not saying it can't work, and they are 3 very good players. It would be a nice combination, maybe, but we'll see. I personally don't think Arteta will make too many changes. We just lost a game. We've got Thomas Partey probably out anyway, so I think he's going to stick with what he knows for this game, and hopefully he'll be hoping that we can turn it around, get the result, and then push on from there maybe. But I would make 3 or 4 changes to the team that's been playing, because some players are off form, it's not working, and we need to try something different, maybe just to mix it up a little bit, freshen it up. I think that's what we need at the minute. We're just looking a little bit tired, a little bit leggy, a little bit out of ideas. What I wanted to do, actually, just before we go on to maybe a score prediction for this game, what would be your favourite Arsenal Aston Villa match from the past? Would you say, sort of memories from some of the games? Obviously, we've played each other so many times over the years.
Yeah, I'd probably say going back. Actually, there's probably 3 games. So there's the 95-96 season. So it would have been 96. It was that Coca-Cola Cup semi-final. Yeah, where we drew 2-2 at Villa, at your place. Sorry, Dwight York got 2, and I mean, he was fantastic at that point. And then we drew 0-0 at Villa Park and kind of held out. And then the next one would have been the John Gregory time. I think we went top of the league. I think it was a Boxing Day game, and you guys went 2-0 up at half time. And I don't know if you remember, it was a game where the guy who dressed as Santa,
down, didn't he? He hit the roof, didn't he?
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, I was at that game.
Yes, I was as well. Story about that is he fell, obviously, like fell down. I don't know if he lost his legs or like badly, but the nurse who looked after him, they fell in love and got married.
Did they really?
Yeah. But anyway, that one we came back to win 3-2 in the second half. I think Dion Dublin scored a couple of goals.
He did.
And then the recent one is in the lockdown when we got the 3-0 win at the Emirates. Jack Grealish, Ross Barkley, and Ollie Watkins kind of I think that was their peak. That was peak Aston Villa at that time. It was brilliant, but yeah, it's probably those three times that we played. I think there, but like you say, we've had some great games. I think the season where Villa came up, where we lost 3-2, where I think Aubameyang scored in the last minute. I was at the Emirates for that game. I think with Villa could count themselves pretty unlucky that game, but get taught lessons in the Premier League. But yeah, we've had some good games now. So hopefully tomorrow can be another one.
I think Callum Chambers scored for us in that game.
He
That
did.
3-2.
Yeah, he did.
Didn't
Yeah,
he?
he did. Yeah, he got the goal because I think Villa went.
Because you were 2-1 up, weren't you? I think you went
Yeah,
1-0
yeah,
up and 2-1 up, and
yeah, yeah.
Callum Chambers made it 2-2, didn't he? And then Aubameyang
Yeah.
scored the winner. But yeah, that was. I wonder what happened to Callum Chambers after all them years ago. But I mean, obviously, my favourite one would probably be the FA Cup final from 2015.
Yeah.
When we
want to talk about that.
That's probably the best. I think that's the best we've ever played in a cup final. That, to be fair, we just were brilliant that day. And I know, you got relegated the season after and stuff, but. I just thought Arsenal played so well that day. I think we'd have beat anyone the way we played. I thought we were brilliant.
Yeah, you were great. We didn't turn up. I think it was one of them where again, like had the semi-final been at a neutral ground, and we beat Liverpool at Wembley, and that was almost like Villa's cup final. To beat Liverpool again, and then you're coming up against Arsenal again at Wembley. Like I think they thought that they'd expended all their energy in that game, and I think there was a lot going into it about us, trying to stay in the league. So yeah, it was a tough one to take, really. But yeah, we just didn't turn up. But you guys played fantastic. I remember another one. I don't know if it was. I don't know what year it was. This is 80s, but you thrashed us 6-2. I might have been really, really young. Was it? I think it might have been Woodcock or someone got 4 goals. My dad always used to tell me about that one.
He got 5. He got 5 out of 6. Yeah. And funnily enough, the weird thing about that is, I mean, we spoke about this a few weeks ago. I went to that game, and no player in the first division at the time, the top division in English football, had scored 5 goals in a game since before the Second World War. And on that day, Tony Woodcock scored 5 at Aston Villa. Thought, wow, he's got the record. And on the same day, Ian Rush scored 5 for Liverpool against Luton. The same day. So it hadn't happened for like 40 years or whatever, and then it happened twice on the same day. It was incredible.
Like really. Buses, huh? Like buses.
Yeah, just incredible. So that was a strange game actually, but obviously it was a good performance from us. I mean, it's been so many. Probably I'm trying to think of some at Villa Park actually, because we've had some great games. I remember Jack Wilshere scoring once at Villa Park. We won a game 4-2. He scored a header right at the end. That was a decent away game for us.
There was one where the famous one was, I think Villa won 1-0. Is when Dwight York did that little chip penalty against David Seaman right down the middle.
Yeah, that was the last game of the season, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think that was. We had the FA Cup final the week after. I think we won the double that year, and I think we had the FA Cup final the following week. So I don't think we were that fussed about that game.
Fair enough. I'll give you that one. Give you that one.
I do remember that penalty actually. Fair enough. I think up until that game where just before the FA Cup final in 2020, when you beat us 1-0 in the COVID season, your first season back up, we hadn't lost at Villa Park for about 20 years or something before that.
Right.
We had a really, really good record. We drew quite a lot of them, but we hadn't lost there for years. In fact, that game you mentioned before when we were 2-0 up and you won 3-2, that was the last time you beat us at Villa Park before that 1-0 in 2020. So a long time.
Yeah. We tended to get a couple of results at the Emirates. I remember because there was a couple where we played 2 seasons in a row, I think, where we played you early on in the season, like first game of the season, and got a couple of 3-1 wins, I remember. So we always pulled a result out of the bag at the Emirates. I don't know why. It just tended to be a ground that suited us. Obviously, the last couple of seasons, you've tanked us, but dominated. Not necessarily the scoreline suggested it, but certainly dominated the games. But tomorrow's going to be, it's going to be an interesting one. This is why I say we've kind of got a chance just on the basis of the Emery factor, and we are the way that we play does create some chances. So that does give us I do give us a chance. But I think if you guys play anything like you should play, I think you definitely count yourself as favourites to get the result.
Well, we'll see. Loki says there they have to win because I'm going and I'm entitled. Well, no, you just got to do that. I mean, we want you to win if you're going, Loki, definitely. Loki says Villa's league win in '82 at Highbury. It was '81, wasn't it, when you won the league at Highbury?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, I say you say we all won. Well, we didn't win. We won the game, but obviously Villa won the league. That's far more important than us winning a game that didn't really matter too much to us, I suppose. Colonel says that Dion Dublin probably sold them a house. He probably did, yeah.
Probably did. Bungalow, maybe.
Loki says my mate gave Andy Townsend stick before a League Cup game in '95 at Highbury. Townsend scored and ran to him and gave him the finger. I think I remember that game, actually, that League Cup game when you knocked us out. You actually had a really good record at Highbury. There was a spell where you won about 4 or 5 times in a row in the league and in the cup.
Yeah,
we just couldn't beat you at home. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, I remember those games. There was one. Was it? There was some fullback you had, some bald fullback you had, and he broke forward one. You won 1-0 at Highbury near the end of the season. Who?
Chris Price, was it?
It might have been. Yeah.
No. Sorry, no. Alan Wright, probably.
Was it? I know he was a right back. He was bald. He got forward in the last few minutes, and Villa won 1-0 at Highbury. And I think you were going for the league that season, actually, with Liverpool. And I think that we were the champions, I think, at the time. And that kind of knocked us out of the title race, finally, that goal. I'll never forget that goal that Highbury scored.
Yeah.
Little fullback.
I'm trying to think. Years, but Chris Price was probably like 89, 90.
It might have been Chris Price, actually. That name kind of rings a bell now you mentioned it. It might have been him.
And then the season where we were challenging for the league, like 92, 93, the fullbacks, Earl Barrett was the right back and Steve Staunton was the left back. But yeah, we've like I said before, we always had a good run at Highbury and at Emirates. We always seemed to do well against Arsenal away from home. Like I remember more recently Christian Benteke scoring a couple of goals, and it's just one of those. It's one of those games, isn't it? It's one of those games where you've done well at Villa Park, and Villa have done well at the Emirates and Highbury.
It's like an away game, isn't it? Like the away team seems to favour that fixture. Loki's come up with that. He says Alan Wright. Maybe it was Alan Wright. Perhaps that's who it might have been.
Yeah,
it might. I'm sure it's someone like that. I just remember. I remember the goal because it sort of basically ended our hopes of retaining the title at the time. So, But yeah, I remember that one. That wasn't too great, was it? I'll tell you what we'll do then. What we need to do is we need to do this. Now, if this game had been about 3 weeks ago, I'd have probably said, Arsenal win 4-0, no problem, no drama, lovely stuff. But obviously, events of the last few weeks have kind of made me not quite so confident going into this game tomorrow. And the fact that there's a lot more pressure on us now due to the fact that recent results, the result the other night, we're suddenly under a bit of pressure now when we wasn't maybe before. So, and as you rightly mentioned, the Unai Emery factor, and I do think that's significant as well. You know, people might say, it makes no difference, but I think it does. He's got a point to prove. He knocked us out the Europa League when he was at Villarreal the year after we sacked him, and you could see how much that meant to him. And I got a feeling he's going to be fired up. He'll get the team fired up tomorrow against us. There's no doubt about that for me. Plus, we don't tend to like the early kickoffs. We don't tend to play very well in the early kickoffs for some reason. I don't know why we got beaten against Everton the other week. What are you thinking then? Do you think Villa might be able to get a result there? I know, like you said a few weeks ago, I agree, we probably would have won. But now I'm not quite so sure.
I think the best, I have to say, the best that Villa can hope for, in my opinion, is a draw. I don't think we'll get the win. I think we've lost 2 games on the bounce. I think the Leicester game was a disappointing defeat because we would have gone into that game thinking that's a win, especially with Man City and Arsenal coming up. But I think we lost that game. Obviously, lose to Man City, you take that. I would be hoping for a point just to kind of stem the tide a little bit, and then we've got Everton away the following week, and then you go and aim to win that game. So I'm going to say a 2-2 draw, a high scoring draw. 2-2 draw. Say Watkins and I say that the new player Duran. I think he'll get a goal.
Well, I mean, on the overall scheme of things, I don't think a draw would be a total disaster for us, actually. You know, yes, we need a win, ideally, because we've dropped far too many points in recent weeks. But I think in the circumstances of this game, I don't think a draw would be a disaster, really. I don't. And if you was to offer me a draw now, I'd probably take it, if I'm honest. And think, okay, we'll take a draw and move on to what we've got coming up is potentially winnable games, more winnable games than we in the next couple of weeks. So I'd probably take a draw. Terry's gone for a 3-1 win if we play Trossard, Martinelli and Saka up top, and Tommy and Tierney. If he plays Eddie and Zinchenko, I think we lose 2-1. Well, there you go. That's the team selection. Loki says first goal wins, but I hope 3-1 Arsenal. I don't know. Can you see us scoring 3 goals? I don't know. I'm not. At this moment in time, we're
Villa
struggling.
are conceding goals. That's the only thing. They're conceding
Yeah,
goals.
that is true. Actually, you are conceding some goals. Actually, so maybe you're right. Maybe there will be some goals tomorrow, although we're not scoring too many. I mean, I can't back against my team, even though I'm not.
You can't.
I'm not confident. I've got to be honest. I'm not particularly confident that we can win, and I would probably take a draw. But I'm going to have to back the team. I think it's going to be a tight game again. It's been tight at Villa Park last few years, as we said. I think we might sneak it 1-0 again, like we did last year. Maybe a sneaky little 1-0. But I'm not overly confident, if I'm totally honest. But if we win 1-0, I'll be delighted because we desperately need something. A deflected goal, anything to go in will do us at the minute, and just to try and get that win. But I kind of agree with Loki. I think the first goal is going to be really important. I think if we go behind again, I think it's going to be really, really tough for us to come back. Whereas I think if we get ourselves in front, I think our confidence might come back. Because that's something we haven't been in front in a game. I can't remember last time we went in front. Probably last time we won, I would imagine. I know we went in front against Brentford and still managed to somehow contrive to throw that one away.
Yeah,
last week.
That was unlucky though. That was unlucky. But yeah, I do think one thing that Villa have been good at, particularly even under Gerrard, but particularly under Unai Emery, is if we get the lead. Although I know we did against Leicester, but other than that, when we get the lead, he's tactically very astute in terms of holding on to that lead and then still being a threat on the break. So yeah, I do think that whoever made that comment has got it spot on. Whoever gets that first goal, I mean it's like that in any game, but whoever gets that first goal, I think is pretty much that bang on to win the game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case actually. But I suppose if it's going to be 2-2, then whoever scores first doesn't win, do they? I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I don't know. I just can't see us scoring 2 goals at this moment in time. The way we're kind of playing, but who knows? Maybe tomorrow will be the turning point for us, and we can get back on track. We'll see. I mean, in terms of the rest of the season, then, I mean, what are you expecting from Aston Villa? Where do you think you'll finish?
I think we'll be finish about where we are at the minute, mate. I think we're 11th at the moment. I think probably if we could push to 10th, finish in the top 10, that'd be decent. But yeah, I think I don't think we've got to necessarily worry too much about teams below. I think that there's, Southampton and Bournemouth are pretty poor. The other teams will take points off each other. So I think if we could get 10th, I think I'll be reasonably happy with that, considering kind of the turbulence of the season and stuff. So yeah, I don't see anything higher than that if I'm being brutally honest. I don't see us getting dragged into any real trouble. I think we've got enough in us to get the required number of wins. I'd like to see if we could have an aim of breaking that 50-point barrier and seeing where that takes you. I think that would be a decent target, but yeah, I think top 10 would be satisfactory.
I mean,
What about you? What about you?
I mean, obviously, the dream is to finish top, isn't it, and to win the league, I guess. And in the position that we've been in for much of the season, anything other than that would probably seem a little bit disappointing. I mean, to be honest, at the start of the season, top 4 was where we had to finish, in the top 4. Because having blown it last season, it was like, well, let's just get in the top 4 this season, and that would be a sign of improvement. Now, things have changed because we got 50 points in the first 19 games, and suddenly we're in a position where now, if we don't win the league, that's almost a failure. And I know it isn't. If we finish 2nd or 3rd and we're in the top 4, it's not really a failure if you look at the overall picture, because the top 4 is the progress from the last few seasons, isn't it? But I think I would be massively disappointed if we didn't win the league now after the start we've had and where we are and how we've played for most of the season. But I'm not, as I said before, I'm not convinced we will. I think Man City's extra experience. Pep knows how to win these leagues, doesn't he? And they're the sort of team that can go on a run of 10 wins in a row at the end of the season. And I don't think we've got that in us. Honestly, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think at that point in the season, I just don't think we can do it. So I think we're going to probably end up second or third. I think Man United are going to maybe have a say. That they're playing pretty well at the minute, aren't they? They're not losing too many games. They're picking up points, and the gap's not that great. I think it's 5 points, isn't it? That they are behind us. So it's not a massive amount to make up, and I can see us dropping some points here and there. So, but yeah, I mean, I think second or third would be progress, and I think when the disappointment kind of leaves of not winning the league, I think we'll be pretty happy with that. Champions League football next season, and hopefully bring in 3 or 4 players in the summer that we need to bolster the squad, because the squad's not deep enough. I think that's the problem. And if we can do that in the summer with Champions League football, maybe next year we can take that extra step. I don't know. But I think it depends on how we finish this season. I think if we maybe go head to head with City right to the end, and it goes to the last couple of games, and we maybe miss out by the odd point here and there, I think we say, okay, fair enough, that's a decent effort. But if maybe we drop away and Man City pull away and end up winning it quite comfortably, and then we're just battling to try and keep second place from Man United, maybe we'd have to look and say, is it another season where we haven't shown that character when it matters again, like we did last year, we did the year before and stuff like that. So we'll have to see. But at this moment in time, I'm hopeful we can still win the league. We're in a good position. Level on points, a game in hand. Who knows? It's all to play for still. But we need a turnaround. We need a result, and we need to start it very, very quickly. Colonel says, who hasn't scored in a year for Villa? It's bound to happen. So you think, which player maybe hasn't scored for a while? They'll probably score tomorrow. Maybe that new guy you said he's not scored.
Duran hasn't scored yet. He had a cracking effort against Man City. Our centre backs don't seem to get many goals, particularly off set pieces. So it'd be time for like Tyrone Mings or something to get a header from a set piece or something.
You know what's going to happen? Callum Chambers will score, won't he?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what's going to happen. He'll be the player that will score. We've got this. We seem to have this thing where ex-players always seem to score against us. That just always seems to happen. You can guarantee they will. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's Callum Chambers, or maybe Martinez comes up for a corner at the end and scores a header or something. That'll probably be what happened. But anyway, I mean, to be honest with you, I think it's going to be a very, very tight game either way. I don't think it's going to be easy for either team to get a result. I think it could go either way. Terry says Chambers hat-trick. I don't know about a hat-trick, but he certainly might well score one. But I mean, I'll take a draw, but obviously we want to win.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. Same for the rest of the season. Hopefully we can do it, but I'm not convinced. I wouldn't mind winning the Europa League, actually, if I'm honest. That'd be nice. European trophy. If we can't win the league, let's try and win that, because it's we haven't won enough European trophies, as we keep getting reminded when we go to Villa Park, actually, about European trophies and stuff. Sorry that we've never won, so we need to win at least something and then get in the Champions League next year. That's the one thing you always get to say. I mean, I'll say that's been a big club with big history, and that's one thing that. Even Nottingham Forest sing that to us when we play them in the FA Cup. So,
I know they won it twice as well. So
I know, everyone seems to win it except us. So we need to put that right at some stage in the future. But for now, let's try and get this season successful one way or the other, and get in that Champions League again and go forward from there. So we'll see. And thanks a lot for joining me tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. Just give your channel a little plug as well before you go.
Yeah, of course, mate. Thanks for having me on. It's been really enjoyable. So and great work that you do on your channel as well, mate. So we are Villa Park Podcast, on YouTube. So have a look out for us. We just hit the 1,000 subscribers, as we said at the start of the show. So going well with the channel, and obviously on Twitter there at Villa Park Pod. So follow us. We do lots of different shows, tactical breakdowns with like a football analyst for each game. So we'll be doing that again for the Arsenal game, regardless of the result. And match reactions, match preview, which is coming up at 9:30. So if anyone's watching now, wants to see it from a Villa perspective, hop over to the channel and have a watch as well. Just check us out as Villa Park Podcast, as I said before.
Yeah, so there is a link in the description as well to this video as well, so you can just click on that. It takes you to the channel, subscribe as well, and I say it's good to get 1,000 subscribers, isn't it? It's a big, I know it doesn't seem like a lot to some of these big channels out there, but when you're a smaller channel and you reach that milestone, it's quite an achievement, isn't it? It makes you feel good about life, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, the first 1,000's the toughest, isn't it? And then once you go from there, you start to you start to build your following up. So hopefully, I'll just do it because we enjoy it. Like it's just
Yeah.
chatting football at the end of the day. But once you start getting people watching you and regular people coming back to watch it, it's good and people like what we do. So yeah. I'll do it all the more, even though it annoys the missus when I'm like, oh, I've got another podcast to do tonight. But
Yeah. Yeah, I get the same. I get the same. But no, it's enjoyable, isn't it? And I've met a lot of great people from doing this, and that's been one of the most positive things, really.
Yeah.
To people that you meet that you'd never probably have met otherwise. So it's great as well. It's a little community that you get, and it's great. So yeah, it's really good stuff. Terry says, "Cheers, Rich. Nice to meet you. Take care. Good luck, but not too much for tomorrow." Yeah, I think we all kind of think the same.
Echo the sentiments. Yeah.
Colonel says, good show. Yeah, cheers, mate. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm saying thanks to Rich as well. I say good luck for tomorrow. Enjoy the game, but obviously, hopefully, you don't enjoy it too much because that'll be quite stressful for us. But good luck for the rest of the season. I'm sure Unai Emery will do well for you, given the right amount of time and backing. I'm sure he'll be successful in one way or the other, whatever that is, whether it's getting you into Europe or whatever it is. I'm sure he will. And obviously, I wish him well as well because he's a nice guy, Unai Emery. Even though I was screaming for him to be sacked when he was at Arsenal at the end, I kind of feel bad about that now because he is a nice guy. I do like him, and I do hope he has he has success in English football because I think he deserves to have success. And he's at a big club, and it'd be good if it works out. But we'll see what happens. But I say thanks to all you guys for watching as well. Don't forget to check out Rich's channel as well. They're doing an Arsenal show at 9:30, so go and check out that as well because that'll be good fun. And I say enjoy the game tomorrow. I'll be back for that game 12:15. I'll be here 12:20 for the game. It's going to be a good one. Let's hope it's a good game. Let's hope it's Arsenal get the result, but we'll see. So thanks to Rich for joining us. Say good luck for the rest of the season and enjoy the game tomorrow. I know you're going down for it, aren't you? So that should be good.
Yes, yeah. It should be a good one.
Early start for you.
Yes, mate. Yeah, early start. But yeah, thanks a lot, Rich, and thanks for everyone for tuning in. And I'll catch you soon, mate.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks a lot, Rich. Thank you, that, mate.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate that, mate. Take it easy. Bye. See you. Bye. Enjoy the game. So that was Rich there from the Villa Park podcast there, looking ahead to the game tomorrow. Loki says, good show, chat, thumbs up. Yeah, cheers, mate. Thanks for your support again. Terry says, Richard, great show again. Great guest here tomorrow. Yeah, you will indeed, Terry. Hope you're well. Terry says also there, Loki, have a great day tomorrow. And Colonel, take care. So yeah, enjoy the game tomorrow, Loki. Obviously, safe journey and enjoy the game. Let's hope it's a decent performance from Arsenal because we're due one, aren't we? We've been poor for the last few games. It's a little bit frustrating how we've been playing. Some of the team selections are a bit strange, the substitutions and whatnot. So let's hope that tomorrow's a better day. I don't like the 12:30 kickoffs much, but it is what it is. We'll have to deal with it, and hopefully we can put in a performance. And yeah, let's hope we get the result. And let's hope Loki on the show on Monday is happy and enjoyed his day at Villa Park. I mean, I'm sure he'll have a good day anyway. It's a great away day, Villa Park, isn't it? It's a great place to go and watch football. And hopefully tomorrow will be a great game. And I'm sure we can win, but I would take that draw if I'm honest, right at this moment in time. And then I say we've got some potentially winnable games in the next few weeks, haven't we? So let's try and turn it around. But I say a win tomorrow would be massive, wouldn't it? Really put us in a great shape going into the next few weeks. And we'll see what happens. So thanks for joining me tonight. I say coming up tomorrow is the watch along. I mean, I'm going to be rushing back from football in the morning, but I should be back by 12:15, hopefully, to bring you that game, 12:30 kickoff, of course, Aston Villa against Arsenal. So join me for that. Then, of course, on Monday, we've got the Arsenal review. Looking back on this game, looking back on the Man City game as well, of course, and looking ahead to next week as well. So all that's coming up on Monday. There'll be a few shows next week. I'm hoping to do one or two different things as well. Hopefully, Melvin can be back with the Highbury matters. There's, of course, is there a midweek game this week? I can't remember if there is now. I don't know if there is. I can't remember. I can't remember if there's a midweek game. I don't think there is there? Let me just check. There's so many games lately. I'm just losing track of when they all are. Because I know the women aren't playing this week because it's international break. Let me just check the fixtures. I'm having some internet issues here actually on my phone. But anyway, Melvin's hoping he can be back to do the Highbury Matters show this week as well. What are they up to now? 1990, the early 1990s. That's going to be great, isn't it? Because the early 1990s was a great time to be an Arsenal fan. So that'll be coming up hopefully this week as well. Another great guest, of course, as always. coming up on that show. Hopefully Stephen Adam will be back with the review extra as well. They've not been able to get here the last couple of weeks. They've had a few other stuff going on, but hopefully they can be back this week for that show. Next Friday, I'll be back with a women's show next Friday. Of course, Arsenal women back in action next weekend. A big game against Chelsea in the FA Cup next weekend. So that's going to be good. So we'll look ahead to that one as well with all the guys. And of course, next weekend, the watch-alongs, as always, a big, busy time at the weekends on the channel. So that is that for tonight. I hope you enjoyed that show. Something a little bit different. Get an Aston Villa perspective on. Don't forget, 9:30 on the Villa Park podcast, there is an Arsenal review show there as well with Rich and his gang. So please join them for that if you can. And please subscribe to his channel because he's just at 1,000 and that's a big milestone for any channel. So that's great stuff. So I will see you tomorrow at about 12:15 for the game. Villa Park. It's going to be big. It's going to be tense. And let's hope Arsenal can produce a better performance in recent weeks, get the win and get ourselves back on top of the table, back on top and back in form. That's what we want to do, don't we? So join me for that. It's going to be good fun. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, give us a like before you go and we'll see you tomorrow. In the meantime, as always, come on you Gunners. I will see you tomorrow lunchtime. Take it easy, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Friday night. And it is now the weekend officially until Saturday lunchtime. Then we get stressed for 2 hours. But enjoy what you can, and I will see you tomorrow, guys. Take it easy. Ta-da. Real Martinelli. It's now with Granit Xhaka. Is it going to be the third goal? It is the third goal. Granit Xhaka with it. That seals it.